Welcome to the Igniting the CEO Within podcast, where we interview successful high-level professionals to discover lessons they've learned throughout their career that can help ignite that CEO within you. I'm Mark McFatridge, and I'll be your host for the next 15 minutes or so. Our show is sponsored by Quaid, a nationwide community of CEOs and entrepreneurs. Quaid has developed Launchpad, which offers an opportunity for experienced executive coaches and strategic advisors to become licensed circle directors. After completing the Launchpad program, you'll lead your own peer advisory circles, helping other CEOs and entrepreneurs excel in their professional and personal lives while providing a community of accountability, challenge, and support. If you'd like to learn more, go to quaidcircle.com. On our show today, I'm pretty excited to have Jeff Sesol, founder and CEO of Pull the Chute. He's based out of Chicago, Illinois. Jeff, man, thank you and welcome to the show.
Well, thank you so much, Mark. I'm really excited to be here. And, that pre-conversation about mutual people that we know together was amazing. So
Yeah,
small world.
it is a small world. So, hey, look, you do some amazing work in the leadership realm, and that means that you've been exposed to all kinds of leaders. You've seen some really great ones and some that might need some work. What if you started to narrow it down, what would be one or two traits that you see that separates the really good leaders from those folks that could use some improvement?
I think the short answer to that is humility versus learning that it's not about you.
Hmm.
So one of the struggles I run through is when I'm dealing with leaders is that because they're the CEO, they think that, their word is golden and everyone must follow it, and it makes everything about them.
Mhm.
And one of the things that we teach people, the first thing we teach people is that it's not about you. And what I mean by that is, look, you're the CEO, you're the leader. If something goes wrong, guess what? You take the blame.
Mhm.
If something goes right, you give the praise. So leadership isn't I did this, I did that. Leadership to me, and this is one of the biggest struggles that most people have because their egos get in the way,
Mhm.
is that, well, I did this and I did that, when it should be we did this and we did that, or give the praise to the team. Great job, guys. This is awesome. Because I think that's the killer. I mean, you know, I always say, look, a true leader can't, a true leader that struggles can't get out of their own way.
Mhm.
Right. And that's because, again, they make it about them. So, yeah, I just think that's the biggest thing that I've seen is that they make it about them. And, they got to learn to be humble.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%, and have tried to model that throughout my career too. One of the things that I think is interesting in that discussion is part of what helps somebody get to that leadership role, especially an entrepreneur and CEO, is ego, right? I mean, there is some belief in themselves at a minimum, right? That helps them do that. So, how do you help them walk that balance of the confidence that they have in themselves and yet making sure that it's humble enough to know that it's about the team versus just themselves?
Well, I think one of the first things we teach them is to be able to, give some of the jobs they're doing away to other people, right?
Mm-hmm.
And trust that they're going to do it. That's the hardest part, right? And then you run into the problem of, well, they delegated the job, um, but then they're not sure that it's being done the way they want it done.
Mm-hmm.
And what I try to teach them is, look, just because you did it version A doesn't mean that version B or C isn't worse. It could be better,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so what we do is we kind of monitor when they delegate stuff. We kind of monitor things for a while, and I say, all right, how are they doing with this, right? And so you got to give them like enough. It's like a fishing pole, right? You give them enough length, and then if there's something's going wrong, you kind of reel them back in, and you say, okay, let's talk about this. But again,
Mm-hmm.
let's talk about this. Talk to me about where the struggles are. Talk to me about what you're doing. And then the other thing that I love to do, and again, this goes back to the ego thing because it's your business, right? You're paying the bills,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so that's one of the other struggles. Is like, look, I'm holding the purse strings. I want it my way or the highway. And the reality is, what they don't understand is, if they would give their people an opportunity to express their thoughts, their opinions, their ideas, and they can still say no,
Yeah.
but at least they've given them the opportunity to do that, could really increase what happens. The average company that I work with, grows on an average, for every dollar they spend for leadership development, they get like a 7 in return, which
Mm.
means either, people are working more hours, so they're more efficient because they like their job. They wake up in the morning and they're like, I'm looking forward to going into my work today.
Right.
Not, oh crap, I got to go into work today. Right.
Hmm.
So they're much more efficient that way. And then the other cool part is that they have a tendency to, excuse me, to really make a big difference from an employee standpoint because the employees feel now energized and encouraged.
Yeah. I think you've nailed it. I think it also becomes this change in perception of I've got to drag everybody across the finish line with me versus let me take a little bit more time. Let's do some education about, what we're trying to accomplish, when we're trying to accomplish it by, and what is your role in what we're trying to accomplish. And so to me, that's the foundation. But then you've got to follow it up with what you were talking about, which is the empowerment piece, right?
Mhm.
It's let's provide them all the tools to be successful and let them go at it. And acknowledging that they're probably not going to do it as fast as you immediately, but to your point, they could uncover something that you had no idea works because you shouldn't be on the front
Yeah,
line anymore, and
right.
b you're not on the front line.
Yeah. Well, I always tell my clients, ask your people what they need to do their job better. And as long as it's within reason, give it to them because
Yeah.
now they own it. You trusted them, you asked them what they need to do it. And it could be something very simple, but if it cuts 15 minutes off of their job or 20 minutes, huge difference, right? That goes a long way. The other interesting thing too that you said there, I just wanted to touch on it. We call it the why and because. So we're in four generations right now. We still got baby boomers out there. We got Gen Xers, we got millennials and Gen Zers, right?
Mhm.
The millennials started this whole why am I doing this? But the Gen Zers demand why am I doing this?
Hmm.
And so we call it the why and because. Tell them why they're doing it because this is what we're trying to get to,
Mhm.
right? I know when I started in the workforce, it was like do your job, keep your head down, don't ask questions. I don't pay you to think kind of
Right.
environment, right?
Right. Yep.
Um, but that has changed tremendously. And people want to know. I mean, how many times have we heard, I don't know why I'm doing this. This is stupid.
Mhm.
But if the leader had shared or if the boss had shared why they were doing it because we were trying to get to this point, then I'm like, oh, okay, I get it now. But they didn't want, it was just like, do your job, right? So
Yeah.
that's changed. And I love that that's changed that way. I think that, we live in a different society. It's not about, I mean, people leave jobs not about money. They leave jobs because the environment sucks.
Yep.
Let's face it,
Yep.
right? There was a company in Nashville that I could never get into. I tried several times, but his ego was too big. And he would go through employees, like the turnover was
Hmm.
insane, like 9 a month or 9 every 2 months or something like that, right? Because he would pull this Jekyll and Hyde stuff, oh, how's everybody doing? And then he'd blitz off on people.
Right.
It was terrible. It was just a terrible work environment. And those are the things that I am trying to get us to stop creating, by pull the chute. If I could real quick, the pull the
Yeah,
chute
please.
story, because your listeners may not know, came from a skydiving event that I did when I was 40. So you go 14,000 feet up in the air, you tumble out, you're falling at 120 miles an hour. First thing you notice, it's hard to breathe. Everything's happening. One little move of your hand, you spin out of control. Everything's happening so fast, you can't see where you're at and you can't see where you're going.
Hmm.
But at 5,500 feet, I pulled the chute. So that I could breathe again. I was in control. I could see where I was at. And I see where I wanted to go. And as we tell people, isn't that a lot like being in business? And maybe like life sometimes too. And
Sure.
so our goal is to get people to quote unquote pull the chute, pause, pick your vernacular, and just take a breath, feel in control, see where you're at, and see where you want to go. Because we have a tendency to react on decisions instead of think through them. And that's where the
Mhm.
problems come from. So if we could just pause, pull the chute, say, okay, what do I ultimately want out of this decision? Whether it's with an employee, whether it's you're cutting a deal with somebody, whatever it is, it's important to understand what you want to get out of it.
Yeah, that's really cool. I want to I want to tap back into the generation discussion too,
Sure.
because I think it's a fascinating thing. You're right that the evolution of what's happened. I contend that our generations are not really that dissimilar in what we want out of things, right? Everybody wants, and I'm talking generally, obviously, but everybody wants to know that their thoughts are heard. They want to work towards something they believe in. They want to feel valued, that type of thing. And I think that goes beyond the generations. How it's come out, I think, is a completely different thing. But I think if you ask anybody, they want to know what they're doing makes a difference. They want to know what their role is. They want to know that they're valued and their opinions are valued. You don't have to act on everything, but knowing that you were heard is a really powerful piece.
Yeah, absolutely agree. And that's because of where we're at now with again with the millennials
Mhm.
and the Gen Zers, and then the other two, the Gen Xers and the baby boomers were all like, yeah, I want that. I've always wanted that, but I didn't have the
Right.
ability to ask for that.
That's right.
Right.
Yeah.
So now that's made a big difference with that. And the other issue that a lot of leaders deal with too is communication across the four generations
Hmm.
because they all communicate differently, right? I mean, Gen Zers, and millennials pretty much, my girls are millennials, and they grew up with cell phones and desktop computers.
Hmm.
Gen Zers have grown up with smartphones and laptops, and all they know is tech, right?
Yeah.
And so, the ability to text and do TikTok and Snapchat, and that's all they do. I mean, like my granddaughter and grandson were here for the weekend, and when we weren't doing something, they were on their phone. They were
Hmm.
just on their phone, right? And to me, it's like that's unhealthy to a certain degree. I mean, we just gotta kind of curb that back somehow, because it's almost like social media has created this fantasy world. It's not a reality world.
Hmm.
It's entertainment. It's not. And the problem is that the kids get lost in it. And so there's hence one of the struggles. I did youth ministry for 8 years, and one of the reason I did that was because I hated teenage suicide,
Mm.
right? And
Yeah.
and so that all comes from this social media. I'm not good enough. No one looked at my post.
Hmm.
All these things of dysfunction. So sorry, I got off on a tangent there.
No, that's good. But go back to how are you helping leaders communicate across all four of those, all four generations that are in the workforce today?
um, Getting them to understand each other.
Hmm.
Right? So that's the one thing. Gen Zers like to do their phones all the time. They're not the face to face. There are some, don't get me wrong,
Hmm.
but for the most part, they like to do their phones all the time. Millennials, they're kind of caught between. They'll be on their phone, but they'll kind of like to talk to people. One of the things that we stress to our people is don't send long emails. If you want to talk to someone, pick up the phone
Hmm.
or go to their office or get them on a Zoom now or whatever, Google Meets or Teams, but do a face to face call with them. Don't send these long emails. And that's hard because a lot of times they're like, well, that's how I want to do my update. And I go, you know what, then call a team meeting and then promote the update because there's more of a personal touch. We live in this world where we've lost that personal touch,
Yeah.
right? Because it's all, well, COVID caused that whole process, right? And so now the pendulums swayed way one side. It's starting to come back where we need, as human beings, we need personal interaction. Um, and so we need not to do emails because people can pick apart an email and say, why did he put that word in there and everything
Right.
else, right? I tell people if you got to do more than a paragraph, call them, set up a Zoom, whatever you got to do.
Yeah.
Because people aren't into these long, and what they're going to do is some of them are going to read it and they're going to interpret it the way they want to interpret it because there's no voice inflections,
Yep.
right? Or some of them are going to go, that's way too long. I'm not going to read it. So I think that's a big thing. But we teach them from a communication standpoint to respect each other and how they need to communicate and to just be a little more understanding, right? Because
Hmm.
what happens is especially the Gen Xers and the baby boomers get a little bit frustrated because they want to have this face to face like you and I are having.
Hmm.
Um, and the Gen Zers are like, just text me,
Right.
right? And so so the text could be, hey, do you have a few minutes so I can talk to you, right?
Right. Right. Yeah.
So those are the kind of things we try to teach them, but it's really about respect of the generational aspect of things and learning that just because you do it your way doesn't mean everyone has to do it that way.
Right. Which all everything you just said boils back to your opening point, right? Is it's about humility, right? It's not about
Right.
you and how you want to communicate. It's not about you and how whatever. It's not about you. It's about the greater good and how do we move everybody forward at the same uh, with the same goals in mind anyway.
Yeah. Well, and there's a huge gap right now, and this is one of my passion projects, I guess, is that there's a huge gap in leadership development between millennials and Gen Zers that didn't exist when baby boomers and Gen Xers were around, right? So you got to learn how to be a little bit of a leader, but the Gen Zers and the millennials, they don't have that, right? So the sad reality is 38% of people that get promoted into a leadership job fail after 18 months
Hmm.
because no one taught them how to be a leader. And so my passion played it to businesses is please, please, please bring someone in and teach them how to be a leader
Hmm.
because you're going to be so much more. They're going to be so much more successful. You're going to be so much more successful. Just because they were a great salesperson doesn't mean they're a good leader for the sales team, right? And so because they don't know how to deal with that, they don't know how to deal with when a conflict comes up. They don't know how to deal with emotional intelligence. They don't know how to deal when someone comes in and is all mad, and your natural reaction is to bark back. When the reality
Right.
is you got to calm the situation down. I mean, there's all these things that go into leadership, and we need to teach them how to do that.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. All right. We try to do these things in bite-sized nuggets, and we're starting to come up against that time. Let me ask one question, one last question of you. If you start to think back to 21-year-old Jeff, what is one thing that you wish he knew then that you know now?
In reality, it's funny, but patience for a situation. So when I was 21-year-old Jeff, I kind of, if it didn't work the way I wanted, I forced it. And 9 times out of 10, when I forced a situation, it didn't work out for the best. I learned probably in my 30s, if I was a little more patient, let it play out,
Hmm.
it played out the way it was supposed to play out, not the way Jeff forced it to play out.
I like
And
it.
so that's what I would teach myself. Just
Yeah.
let it play out. Yeah, I know you're anxious. I know you want to get it done and you want to move. And this comes with like dealing with employees or dealing with,
Hmm.
agreements and everything else, right? Just don't force it. Just let it play out a little bit. Give it a day or two sometimes. And that's
Yeah.
all you need.
You should have skydived when you were 20, right?
Yeah, right?
Man, this has been so good. Jeff, do me a favor. Would you share what an engagement with you looks like? And secondly, how do people get a hold of you?
Sure. So there's two types of engagements. One is a one-to-one where I'm coaching you as a CEO, maybe to be a better leader, all that kind of stuff. That we meet an hour every week. So we pull the shoot for an hour every week and we kind of work through what's going on in your life and we talk through the issues and all that kind of stuff. I love those. Those work out really good because they're very intimate from the standpoint of it's a personal, like I don't share, my agreement says, look, I don't say anything about anything that you've said to me. It's like a patient doctor privilege kind of thing, right?
Yep. Yep.
And so once they get comfortable with that, it's really good. The other one is that we do more of a cohort kind of environment where, let's say you have managers or up and coming managers that you want to be better leaders. We do these bi-weekly 4 to 10 people in a cohort for your company.
Uh-huh.
And we go through, there's 2 6-month sessions. And by the way, the one-to-one is a minimum of 6 months as well. And the reason the 6 month is so important is that you have to unlearn what you've built up inside of you
Yeah.
and create new muscle memory, right? So that
Yep.
you start not to react a certain way, that you pause and you go, okay, we've talked about this. I had one client that goes, why do we keep going over the same stuff? And I said, because you promised me you would do it and you didn't. So I'm reminding you again, you know? Um, but I found, I tried it 3 months one time and it was a disaster. I found 6 months works really the best.
Yeah.
And the cohorts meet every other week, twice a month, I guess, for an hour and a half ish. Because sometimes we get into great conversations and we go longer. But
Yep.
we introduce a topic, we talk through it. They're very interactive. And then we send them away with some homework. They come back in 2 weeks. We go over the homework. And then we do role playing where we put them in situations because that's the only way they're going to learn.
Mhm.
Workshops are great. I don't mind doing them and I've done a ton. But it's only for like 3 hours. And so you can't possibly make any changes. You can think about it, but then you go back to your ways.
Yeah.
Whereas if we continually meet for these 6 months, we can correct and we talk about, hey, what happened this last time we met, since the last time we met, that you needed some help with. Right. And then we talk through,
Yep.
okay, well, what if you would have done this or what if you would have done that? And it really is effective then because then they're, muscle memory is changing in their brain. So, but that's how those look. And if you want to know more, please reach out to me, Jeff at pullthechute.net. I'm always looking for to help people. I mean, my goal is to help. I'm 65, so in the next 5 years, I want to help 200 companies grow and be the best they can be.
Nice.
So we're on a pace there. We're starting to get there, but obviously we could always use more help. we also, just so you know, it's not just me. I have people. I have two people in Nashville. I have another person in London, England, Bob Cotton. Uh, uh, John Zettler's in Nova Scotia, Canada. So we have people all over in a sense, the world, because that's our goal. Our goal is to change the world. So
I love it. Well, man, congratulations on all you're doing. I'm really proud that you would take some time and hang out with me. This has been
um,
great.
oh, one other quick thing, if I could, by the
Yeah,
way,
of
if you go on
course.
Amazon, you can get my new book called The New Leadership Landscape: Redefining True Leadership. Just look up Jeff Sesol. Last name is S like in Sam, Esol. Probably the fastest way to find it.
Love it.
But yeah, I'm
Love
excited
it.
about the book. It's out, and it's making some good headway there.
Very cool. Well, thanks again for hanging out. Really appreciate your insights.
No problem. Thanks, Mark. Appreciate it.
All right, y'all, we've done it again. We found another amazing leader to share some insights with you. Hopefully, you can pocket some of these experiences away and use them on your way to the CEO seat. As we wrap up, I want to remind you that Igniting the CEO Within is sponsored by Quaid, a nationwide community of CEOs and entrepreneurs. Quaid has created Launchpad, which provides an opportunity for experienced executive coaches and strategic advisors to become licensed circle directors and significantly impact the lives of CEOs and entrepreneurs. To find out more, visit us at quaidcircle.com. Until next time, keep igniting that CEO within you. I'm Mark McFatridge. Thanks for listening.